Good morning, everyone. Good. I think we still have the energy left, right? Before I begin, I really want to thank Sameer and 3AI for organizing this event. And he was talking about, is it a brave decision? It's definitely is a brave decision, but also a well-thoughtful decision. Because at this point, picking GenAI as a topic, which is of interest to everyone, it was definitely going to catch some eyes, right? Before I begin and start speaking about the banking industry, how it is going to be influenced by GenAI, let me ask a question. How many of you thought a year ago, so last year this time, how many of you thought that GenAI is only a hype, it may just die? Can I have a raise of hands? Honest raise of hands, unless you all had futuristic visions. Okay, look like a lot of you have futuristic visions. How many of you think today that GenAI is going to be a disruption just like cloud was or years ago internet was? Can I have a raise of hands? Fantastic. How many of you agree that banks usually are the last ones to adopt these new technologies? Okay, thank you. So now you understand how tough our job becomes, especially when we're leading banking industry, and that too for the EMEA market, right? It's not even US. So if you see EMEA's role in the world's economy, the best thing they have done is making regulations, right? They're great at it. So we have to be in a market, A, in a banking domain, B, with EMEA market, and then work on GenAI, which is obviously very interesting, intriguing, innovation, all of this. So we, rather than jumping on it, saying, oh, GenAI has arrived, ChatGPT is there, let's jump in, let's create something, we took a back seat and thought, how do we build a strategy around this? How will we go and convince our customers to ensure that data privacy is maintained, compliance is maintained, there's no copyright infringement, all of these things, how will we attack that, right? Because that was more important for us. We knew that this is going to create some innovation, this is going to have some efficiency. Of course, there'll be challenges along the way, but the biggest challenge for us from a banking perspective was how to convince them. We couldn't have gone with a code generator and say, hey, we will convert your code from SAS to Python and see this will change, bring 30% efficiency for you, right? I must also thank Prateek, by the way, for setting the context, so I don't have to spend a lot of time on hows and whats. I will jump straight into what we thought we could do. So before we could make a strategy, we started thinking about the entire piece for banking for GenAI into this form. That obviously will have a foundation model. We are not going to build our own. We'll have a foundation model. But we need to understand before we go ahead and create a use case, even to filter the use case, we need to ensure that we understand, is the data available, right? Because we can talk about the best of use cases, but banking still is living on those days where we still have Teradata in most of the large banks, right? We still have ab initios of the world. We still have some legacy platforms where the data is not coherent, right? Data is not ready. Even implementing ML and AI models were not so easy in banks 5, 6 years ago. So the first thing is, do you understand data? Is the data ready? Do we have data privacy? What kind of PI, PFI information is going to be there? And what can we do about it? The second part was, do we have the domain expertise? Do we understand the domain? How will it impact banks? So rather than jumping on from the technology standpoint and see what GenAI can do and then build use cases, we thought, why not think from a banking life cycle, right, on how a bank operates in each of the segments, in each of the verticals. What can we do to create the biggest impact? And that's where we started thinking from the pricing, profitability, from the acquisition standpoint, ECM, collections, marketing. And in all of these areas, what kind of use cases can be created? This is where we haven't created cases, right? We're just thinking about the functional part of it, right? And we figured out there are 3 categories, right? While GenAI can impact almost everything, right? In marketing, if you're doing, you want to run campaigns, of course, GenAI will help you generate data. It can help you generate synthetic data. It can also help transform and get customers. It can have a customer interaction in an ECM platform, right? So it can go and do customer operations very effectively. So a lot of things can happen. But the question was, how much generative part of AI is there? Not for the sake of it using it. How much the generative part is there? What is the ROI? What is the effort involved? And what is the impact? And then how will this impact will roll over for the entire banking life cycle? So it's not that we'll go and say, okay, let's do a Gen AI-based marketing campaign, and let's leave it there. We're saying, let's do a Gen AI-based marketing campaign, decide the pricing using Gen AI, then go to marketing using Gen AI, then acquire a customer using the risk decision, risk platforms, decision engines using Gen AI, then manage the customers using Gen AI. So you will create an entire life cycle using Gen AI. All the cases in this slide which you see highlighted in dark, which is dark gray, are the ones which are high impact cases, right? So, and these cases can be built, are being built as we speak, and they will create a rounded impact on the entire banking lifecycle. So that is what our thought was. And obviously underneath there will be a technology layer where we obviously have to think of how we can move from legacy platforms. By the way, the biggest discussions we are having with banks is using Gen AI to move away from legacy platforms. We've been there for a long, long time, but time has come where we move from there. Because unless we move our data to cloud, unless we have our data organized in a structured way, we cannot create as much impact as Gen AI can create. We'll lose a lot of benefits. So that's one thing. How do we assess any use case to be useful or to be impactful? ROI is obviously one thing, right? But three things which you see typically in a bank environment. It's model, what kind of model you're going to use, what is the accuracy of the model, what is the security of the model. One example I can give you is, I don't know if you have seen, there are a lot of code infringement cases in UK and Europe, where if you write a code and if you copy a code of somebody, they're huge billion-dollar cases, right? So you can't just pick a code and write it, right? If I am using the same foundation model, you are using the same foundation model, we are converting the code, what happens to that? Are we going to get into that issue? Other way around, let's say we are working for bank A using our model, right? And we are creating some generative AI content for them. Let's say a simple case of code conversion. We are converging code for them. Then we are accessing to their codes. Then when we go to bank B, because our model is now trained even better, will we already have learned what this bank knows? Because these are the questions banks are asking. And we have to have answers for it. While of course there are answers to it, we need to have independent trainings. But then what's the benefit? If we don't learn, if we don't train our Gen AI model, then what's the benefit? So it's not that we have answers to everything today, but we have to think from a holistic point of view and from fundamental point of view on how to ensure. And in banks, I would say the biggest theme, and I'm hoping Prateek and others will agree, is the compliance part of it, is not the impact part of it. Impact, I think the world has agreed, but the compliance part of it. And hence we are working very closely with EMEA laws and everybody else to ensure that we can create a bigger impact for banks using Gen AI. So my final statement is, when you assess a use case for Gen AI across industry, please also focus on the compliance part of it and think holistically before you start working on this use case. Thank you very much. That's my time for the day.